All right, welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to do a really simple like flower painting with a fun background effect. I'm going to show you how you can paint over a canvas that already has paint on it because it really doesn't matter. You can paint. I love acrylics because you can paint over things. In my last tutorial, I did a quick little kind of color mixing talk about using your primary colors. So all these colors you see here are created just using these three colors, or in plus black and white, which is amazing. So make sure you have like a biggish paintbrush. You can use either a 1-inch wash. This is a 1.5-inch paintbrush, flat brush. So any big brush is going to do good. I'm going to use the super big one just to get it on a little faster. And today we're just going to be playing with like a lot of green shades. So I'm going to use, to start, yellow and blue to create my first shade of green. And I'm going to put white in it too. I want a pretty light shade. And then we're just going to start painting the canvas with this light shade of green. Notice how I'm just dabbing it on. And notice how it goes pretty good over this paint. We're going to do more layers, so even if it shows through a little bit, it doesn't really matter. Now, if I have more blue, it's going to be darker. And if I have more yellow, it's going to get more yellowish. So you can play around with different ratios of paint. I want it to be a little bit darker, maybe like through the center of the canvas. And I'm going to do a little lighter on the upper left and lower right corners like I already did. And you can layer if you're painting over something like I am. You can always make it a little thicker on your background to cover over stuff. But I don't like wasting canvas. A lot of times I'll just paint my canvases black and do a black canvas because that's like the easiest to paint over. But you could use any kind of, if you do like a base color like this that's kind of darkish, it's not like you're trying to paint it a super light color. It's a little easier to paint over with the darker color. So, just one other way to let your art supplies go a little further. And we're going to play with like all these different shades of green. It's going to be really cool. So we want to get a base layer of green. Notice how I just use more blue through the middle, and then I have a little bit more white on the corners. And maybe I have a little more white up here. You can always change your colors. So easy. And I just want to tap around the color just a little bit. And then I'm going to be like, okay, that's my background. Now, to create some layering on top, I'm going to use my finger, and I'm going to use this really light shade that I just created right here. So it's mostly white with a little bit of blue and green. And then I can come in and start doing my little circles for that bokeh effect. So you're just going in, rubbing your finger in a circle, and kind of blurring it around the edges. Now, your paint will go a lot farther if your paint is wet like mine is. If it's dry, it won't go as far, but it won't be, and it will be more bright. So if you want it brighter, I would hit it with the blow dryer. If you want it more subtle and you want it to go a little further, I would do it while it's wet. So you can do a little bit of both. So I'm going to do a little bit while it's still wet. And I'm just using a lot of white with a little bit of blue and yellow. So for this super light green. You can even do one that's kind of coming off the canvas a little bit. You can even use just almost pure white. So it's up to you how you want to use your paint here. It's so relaxing to do this. I always kind of zone out and just my mind just kind of spaces out. And then you can even do some with just pure yellow. So, and again, I'm always using these paints. This Liquitex Basics acrylic using the primary color. So it's primary yellow. You could use other colors if you wanted to. Maybe I do like a yellowish one up here or wherever you want it. And you can even do some with like more blue or a darker color. It's totally up to you. And then I suggest hitting it with a blow dryer to just, you know, get it a little bit drier so that when you do more layers, it shows up a little bit brighter. All right, and so it's dry. And then I can go in and keep doing more layers. So maybe I get some more white on my finger and do a couple that are a little brighter. See how now that doesn't really blend in anymore and it's just white-ish. So that's just what happens with this technique. So if you want it to be brighter, dry your canvas. If you want it to be more blended in, work with a wet canvas. So put your background on and then really quick start doing this. And you'll have a totally different outcome. So that is just the way paint is. And then you can always touch things up, like maybe I want this yellow to pop a little more. You can do another layer. You can even mix some yellow and white together. And just zone out on it until you're like, all right, I like it. And I know some people never get to the point where they're like satisfied. So if that's you, you just have to learn how to leave it, leave it and just not really care. You have to just learn how to let go. Otherwise, you won't be able to create as many new things. And I did a kind of little interview with somebody one time where I'm going to do some like lightish blue too, like, or like turquoise, where it's more blue and white and less yellow to create some different shades here. I want to do that color, kind of a more light bluish turquoise. Well, anyways, so back to what I was saying, they did a study where they had people making pots and in a potting class, and they told some people, to one group, they said, make this semester, your task is to make like the one perfect pot. And then another group, they just said, make as many as you can, like make as many pots as you possibly can. So one was like quality, make the one best pot you can make. And the other one was just make as many as you can. So different task. And the people who were tasked with making as many as they could actually ended up also making better pots because they got more practice. And I've noticed this is so true. Like if I see through like if I am doing a painting and I see it all the way through, I learned so much more just by going through the process and then letting it go versus getting stuck in the process, not being able to see it through, struggling with trying to make it perfect. And then, I don't know, like, which there really is no such thing as perfect. You're always just going to be learning. So, you just have all these options And you can layer these too. So notice I can just go over and maybe make a different shade of green and then just layer it. So you really can play with this for so long. I don't think that there's any rush here. So like if you want to go for a super long time with this and play it, as long as you're having fun with it, just pause and go crazy. But like I was saying before with the story, you also don't want to get stuck in the process, like stuck in it to the point where you can't move on to the next thing, because then you're not going to learn as much. So I do invite you to, move through the process, get comfortable with it being not perfect, and moving on, because then you can create more. It frees up your energy. You can be like, it's kind of like when you clean out your closet of all the old clothes you don't wear. Like, you're like, yeah, but I might wear it at some point or whatever, but also you never do, so it's not entirely true. But when you finally get rid of it, it almost like frees it. There's this like energy, this freeness that comes from that, and then you end up kind of just, I don't know, it's just a different energy. It's hard to explain, but you know what I mean. If you've ever experienced that, you know what I'm talking about. So painting is very similar in that way. Like, it is very much like a process of just acceptance, letting go, and then doing it again and trying to learn every time you go through the process, trying to learn something new every time. And then bringing that to your experience the next time. So next time it should get better and better. But I'm just taking different shades of green. You can do as many different shades as you want. Either having more blue, more yellow, more white. It's very therapeutic if you let it be. But don't get caught up on perfection or anything of that kind. So I'm going to let it go. I want that to just be my background here. And then what I'm going to do is go ahead and make some flowers. It's going to be really simple today. We just want to play with different shades of green. Notice how fun it is to make all those different shades. And I'm going to use a medium to smallish round brush. This is a number 4 round. You can use bigger or smaller. I also like using, I might use a bigger one too, just for the petals. This is like it's a bigger round size brush. So this is a number 10 round. I'm like looking for the number, but I always have paint all over my brushes. It's hard to see. So let's make our stem and our center, and then we'll put our petals around it. So what I'm going to do is make a really dark shade of green. So for this, I'm going to use blue and yellow and a little bit of black. That was not that much of a little bit, but we do want it dark, so I'm good with that. It should still look green. You need to relighten it, add more yellow. The yellow will lighten your green up pretty fast if you're mixing with black. You can even just mix yellow and black to make green, a dark shade of green. And then I'm going to put one up here. So I'm going to put like one dot up here, kind of in the upper left area, just make a little dot. And then I'm going to put one down here, right there. And then I'm going to make lines pulling down to the bottom, like that. All right. Now, right above that, I'm going to keep going with this kind of color, this green kind of color, but I actually want to make it a little bit brownish, so you can still use this paint. I'm going to use this green paint, but I'm going to add red to it. So if you mix red and green, this dark green, it'll give you kind of a dark brown. No matter what, when you're mixing your paints, if you begin to start mixing all of them together, you start to get brownish colors. And then I'm going to do above the stem. I'm going to go above just a little bit and make a little bit of a wider circle. And then same here, I'm going to come down above that and make a wide, like a circle shape like that. And then you can use your bigger round brush if you want, or you can use the small one still. And then I'm just going to use the pure white. And then I'm going to make my petals. Now I like to use the tip of the brush to make the tip of the petal. So for example, I'm going to come here and then just push and then release as I get close to the center. And then you can make different lengths of your flower. And then the ones in the back can be a little shorter. So see, I can make these a little longer down here. And then at the top, they're going to be a little shorter. And then same thing up here. I'm going to go push and then release. You want the base of your petals to be touching at the center here. And then as I go to these top ones, they're going to be shorter. Now we have that. So cute. And then go back to your like medium brush, and then we can take a little bit of extra red into our brown color that we used to make it a little bit more reddish, and maybe even a little extra yellow to give it kind of a burnt orange color. So if you add a little extra red and yellow into this brown, or pull aside a little bit of the brown and then add the red and yellow, you should get this burnt color. And I'm going to pull a little bit of that into the base of the petals. Maybe not so much at the top petals, but at the ones on the sides and the bottom. Now you can even clean your brush and use more like surreal colors, like a light pink or something. So I'm going to do a little bit of that. So if I use mostly white with just a little bit of red and maybe even just a touch of yellow to create almost a peachy color, like a light peach, this could be a pretty color to put into your petals too. So we're going to do a couple layers. This can help and soften that shadow that we just put into at the base. Get a little bit of that in there. We'll do another layer of white, so don't worry if this looks too bright at the moment. Just let it be. It's totally fine. And then you could take that color as well, like maybe a little more red and yellow mixed in so it gets a little darker. And then you can begin to tap that in the center, right on top of that brown color. And then you want that flower to dry a little bit. We're going to put a couple highlights on the stems. Now we want the under part to be really dark. So if it's not dark enough, add more of that dark green right underneath the flower. So this part right here underneath should be super dark. And then we want there to be more light as we come down on the left side. So make sure you add a little more yellow and white into the paint so you can mix it into that dark green. Just make it lighter again. And then I'm going to put a little bit of that light color on the left side. Just a little bit, not right at the very top, but at the bottom here. And then if it gets too harsh, just come back with your dark green and soften it. So you can always go in and make your highlights more subtle. Sometimes you have to clean off your highlight color and make your dark color again. So it's so easy to go back and forth between the highlights and the darker colors. You just want to make sure you see both. And then you really want those flowers to be dry before you layer. So make sure you have enough white for the last kind of layering part that we're going to do. And I'm going to use that big round brush again. And we just want to do another layer of white on those petals. And you can even make them a little bit bigger if you need to or want to. I'm going to make mine a little bit bigger. And try to leave some of the stuff that you put before showing. It's okay if you paint over some of it, but try to leave some of it showing. You can always go back and add more of any of the colors too. So there. And I'm just layering more white on there. And then again, you can always come back to that kind of peachy color, dust it back, or more of that orangey kind of color. Just pull a little bit out at the very close part, the part that's the closest to the dark center. So it's just that little back and forth process makes such a big difference. And then last but not least, you're going to add some more highlights to the center of those little flowers by using mostly yellow, a little bit of red, and white too. So we're going to do like this. So it's going to still look, it's mostly yellow, so you want it to look pretty yellow here. But that little bit of red will give it a slightly warmer tone, and then the white will just bring it out and make it look a little brighter. And then I'm going to go to the top part of the center and just dab. Don't go all over everything. You just want to add to the center, like top part. Do little pokes. And then you can even use some pure white too, just right on top of that, just a little bit. Don't go too crazy with that. And then if you want even any more nuance in there, you can always use like some pink or something. So maybe I'll just use a little bit of white and red. I'm just using a really, really small brush here, so you could use like a super tiny detail brush. And then you can go under that and do some very tiny little pink dots. So just to add some more interest in the middle of that flower. Looks super cool. And then you can even add some pink into your highlights on the stem, like right on top of those light green ones. Sometimes it's fun to pull these colors in other parts, or I can add like a few more little brush strokes coming from the center of the petals out into the base of those petals. Just such a small amount. I'm like one of those people that I really like adding pink to things. So, you know, if pink's not your thing, don't add it. I like to though. For some reason it just pink makes me happy. And then I'm just gonna let it go. Super simple, fun, kind of green thing going on in the background, and just really simple flower. Very, very easy. So hopefully you have fun. Make sure to give a like and subscribe and share for more fun little paint alongs like this. I try to keep them pretty short and sweet. And again, thank you for watching, and I hope you spread the joy of painting and have a beautiful rest of your day.